The Battle of Nucremor, also known as the Siege of Nucremor, was the second confrontation of the Second Sand War. Following a failed Red League offensive in the city of Peria, coalition forces responded by launching a counter-offensive against the city of Nucremor to great success. Seeking to aid the rebels of the city of Anatolia, also known as Vividstadt, Councillor Wolfgang Gottfriedl sought to gain an early victory against the Silver League by besieging and infiltrating the city of Peria. Peria, a stronghold in the northwest of the Pale, would have given Merconis the upper hand in control over the surrounding region, as well as allowing the creation of a reliable supply chain to Vividstadt. With the offensive's failure at the Battle of Peria, Merconis was left on the defensive. The coalition meanwhile had viewed the defense of Peria as a significant victory. While the Merconian army and its hired mercenary groups weakened, the general sentiment across the coalition was one of confidence. An offensive into Merconian soil would be more than likely to succeed. As such, the armies would be remobilized to launch an attack into Nucremor, in the hopes of finally taking it after failing to capture the city during the previous battle. But before we start, I would like to ask to please subscribe and leave a like. It really helps out the channel. Anticipating a coalition attack on Nucremor, the Merconian government began defenses on the southern end of the city to repel an attack coming from their southern border. A line of defense was established in the plains between Peria and Nucremor, in the form of a cobblestone wall. The coalition meanwhile had mostly improved on restructuring their army into 4 groups. Alpha Team, also known as the A-Team. The Alpha Team would once again be responsible for spearheading the offensive. Led by Pale Councillor Seni, the goal of the Alpha Team was to siege and capture Nucremor. Blue Team, composed of another section of the army that wished to defend or were not sufficiently prepared to join the Alpha Team, the Blue Team manned the northern walls of Peria. Their orders for the battle were primarily to shoot the enemy when able to, and defend the city if it ever came under attack. This team would be led by Grand Knight Dark Wolf D of Lutum. Red Team, with a composition of something similar to that of Blue Team. The Red Team manned the southern walls of Peria as well as the rooftops across the city's buildings and walls. These were primarily defenders of the city, aiding where needed and also being the first to respond if the city is ever breached. This group would be led by former king of Lutum, Blue Arbiter, who had previously led Blue Team during the Battle of Peria. Charlie Team, a new detachment. This group of soldiers would not see direct combat, but rather provide logistical support to the coalition forces, resupplying whenever and wherever it would be needed. This group would be led by Governor Inos of the Zamots Union, who played a significant role in the Battle of Peria in resupplying the army but believed that the system was in dire need of improvement. The battle would be marked by the coalition's Alpha Team charging from Peria to the defensive line set by the Red League. This occurred during 2:35 to 2:45 p.m. The outskirts of the defensive line were quickly captured by the coalition, meeting little resistance in the form of flanking attacks by the Red League's forces. However, upon reaching the walls, the coalition's offensive quickly backfired. Not only did the Red League's defenses hold against the attack, but the coalition also saw a surge in casualties. Eventually, Seni opted to withdraw from the attack temporarily and remaneuver the Alpha Team. Seni decided to split Alpha Team into 2 groups. Group 1 would focus on capturing and infiltrating the southern wall. Having elite soldiers on this group, it was hoped that they would be able to infiltrate or at least distract the forces while Seni led a flank. The flanking force known as Group 2 would capture territory north and west of the front lines, leaving the entire western section of Nucremor, including the city itself, vulnerable to infiltration. The flank would prove to change the tides of the battle, as the Red League's forces struggled to hold the line against Group 1, with their defensive line being broken at roughly 2:55 p.m. Group 2 meanwhile would successfully breach the walls of Nucremor's castle and begin to seize control over the city at 3 p.m, simultaneously flanking the main Red League's forces from behind. The High Prince of Kaniu, May, single-handedly flanked the coalition's forces in Peria by forming a makeshift bridge over the berry bush obstacles and scaling the walls. They proceeded to fight and kill 2 coalition soldiers, attracting more attention to their breach. The Red Team was dispatched to handle the threat, but the High Prince would escape with their life after scaling the walls and returning in the direction that they had come from. This attack, though a minor victory, would be the only successful Red League attack in the battle. After both groups of the Alpha Team had breached Nucremor, the Red League's forces were unable to handle the threat posed by both sides. With their defenses shattered, casualties for the Red League soared, including Erel being critically injured whilst fighting in combat. By the end of the battle, the city of Nucremor had been secured under coalition forces. The casualties in this battle were lower due to an overall lower number of soldiers on each side. The coalition suffered a modest 21 deaths, while the Red League suffered 45 deaths. The combined 66 deaths from the battle itself barely surpassed the coalition's death count of 64 in the Battle of Peria, and did not come close to the Red League's death count in that battle. Despite his severe injuries, Ariel recovered fairly quickly and would go on to coordinate a raid against Pale civilians who were responsible for cleaning the battlefield. The raid was a success, with several Pale citizens being slaughtered by Ariel's forces. Although the city of Nucamore is low in population and is relatively inconsequential loss for Merconis as far as resources go, its strategic location gives the coalition two advantages it had previously lacked. Firstly, the Merconian city of Krikstad is now surrounded by coalition territory. It is vulnerable to an attack from any direction, and its defense would be incredibly difficult for the Red League, especially in its current state, to maintain. Moreover, the capture of Nucamore gives the coalition a clear line of sight to the Merconian capital of Oblitus Oris. Should Merconis not surrender beforehand, the coalition must capture the city to secure a total victory in the war. The defeat also raises additional problems for Merconis. Should Nucamore not be recaptured, Merconis will be unable to reliably launch any attacks on the coalition nations, let alone aid its allies in Vividstead or Lafros. The loss of Nucamore also puts its entire south, not just Krikstad, under risk of coalition attack. Most of the country outside of Oblitus Oris is now vulnerable or under direct coalition control. Internationally, the defeat only adds concern for the viability of Merconis in its entirety. Already in dire financial straits, revealed through a scandal regarding the Merconis Cacti Exports Company, which provides the majority of funds to Merconis, the country has not shown any signs of financial recovery. Moving on to the last confrontation of the war. During the Second Battle of Oblitus Oris, coalition forces adopted a similar plan to the one used at the Battle of Nucamore. The army was split into three teams. Alpha Team, which was split into land and marine teams, would assault the city. Land Team would approach from the south on foot, and Marine Team would approach from the north by boat. Marine Team would be led by Oath Marshal Jib of the Pale. Bravo Team was split into Red and Blue Team, and would defend Peria against potential flanking maneuvers and support Alpha Team. Charlie's team would supply Alpha and Bravo Team. Charlie Team was led by Governor Enos of the Zemont's Union. The battle was over instantly. Land Team stormed north, breaching the lackluster defenses of the city with zero opposition. Councillor Seni of the Pale killed a journalist on the way. Marine Team spotted an easy opening in the city from the east, and landed in the city unopposed. Land Team and Marine Team would meet in the center of the city and realize that it was abandoned. The next hour was spent unclaiming parts of the city and looting. In the aftermath of the battle, Oblitus Oris was annexed by the Pale. As Merconis had no more claims on the peninsula, the Pale enforced demands on Merconis and made the land a de facto part of the Pale. Wolfgang Gottfried was asleep during the course of the invasion. Upon waking up, he was outraged and demanded that the city was returned for a proper fight. The gods declared that the battle was legitimate and Oblitus Oris remained a part of the Pale. This battle allowed the Pale to enforce demands and effectively end the war. Wolfgang Gottfried vowed to continue the war from Anatolia. However, Aftap surrendered to the Pale, and AWE and Vivid promised to hand over the town to the Pale. This event happened on February 24th, 2022. While all fighting had stopped, no treaty was ever officially signed, meaning the Second Sand War is technically still raging on. In total, in the aftermath of the war, the Merconian Peninsula was annexed by the Pale. The citizens of Lafros fled the continent, leaving their home to be reclaimed by Visio. Vivid agreed to turn the city over to the Pale in exchange for continued citizenship. However, this is pretty much gonna change, considering soon there is most likely gonna be a third Sand War. This is going to be very interesting. Thanks for watching. Peace out and goodbye.